Up next on Inside the SCCA, talking tech. Our guest today is Scott Schmidt. He is the Tech Chief for the Hoosier Super Tour series. Scott joined the staff of the SCCA in 2018, but he's a lifelong SCCA member. He's raced a bunch of different cars along the way. We'll chat with him a little bit about that first, and then we'll talk deep dive into tech at the highest levels of our club here. Hey, Scott, how are you today?
Oh, I'm surviving, Brian. How about you?
I'm doing good. You said you got good weather in Topeka. What would good weather in Topeka look like in March 1st?
It's a week swing. So last week I came home from the club at Button Willow and drove into 1 degree weather with snow and ice. And yesterday it was 82, and I was driving a mini moke around. So, in 1 week swing, we had California weather.
There you go. So you have a long history with the club. Started out as a racer, like a lot of us. What did you start racing, and how far back was that?
I was born into the club. My dad was a production racer in the 70s and 80s. When it came time to go racing, it was autocross and a Sprite. You know what I mean? High school type autocross stuff. That developed kind of cool in the college years of Formula SAE cars. University of Kansas did a lot of that. Wasn't smart enough to be an engineer, but I was in their garage every day, it seemed like. So 10 years of those cars. And then we built a Sprite F production race car, and have been doing that for now 20 years. In the meantime, everything from Sports 2000 to V8 MGB GT2 car that I did for a while. So I've been around tube frame cars and spec cars and everything under the sun. Luckily, growing up, seeing it all.
So there are different regions of the country that I feel are hotbeds for a specific type of racing or a specific class.
Yes.
Production racing, Topeka, you've got some amazing legendary people, outside of the Huffackers out here on the West Coast. When I think production, I think of a couple of guys who I know really well, because you're going to be heading over to talk to them tonight.
Yes, correct. Yeah, I got lucky enough in about 89 or so. Kent Prather moved to Topeka. We had just started Heartland Park, our local road race course, and so he thought that would work, and he dove into building production engines as a living at that point. And then when I started racing, he kind of certainly became a mentor, and I wanted one of his engines, and luckily I got to work there for 2 years. Beautiful ship, and probably certainly led to this for sure.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be here without him, definitely. And then son Jesse has his own shop in the Mazda world, so the two of them, the breadth of knowledge is pretty neat to be around, and the talent level is impressive. What's it
like, a dozen national championships out of their shops?
Kent has 8. Jesse has 4, 5, 6. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely a good group of people to hang out with and learn from.
Right.
So there's a story you need to tell me about your getting your first license in a letter your dad wrote.
Sure. I have it framed in my desk. But basically what it amounted to was analyzing a rule in the GCR. It was beautiful, and my dad always likes to twist words or contort things or intent to the rule. But basically it said, to be a licensed driver or a competition holder in SCCA, you needed to be 18. So in 1979, he wrote a letter to the then Denver that said, I'd like to apply for a competition license for my son. And at the time, the head of road racing responded and said, I'm sorry, you're mistaken, Mr. Schmidt, but you must be 18 years old to compete in SCCA, not 18 days old.
Oh, I always thought you were going to go to 18 months. So it was 18 days.
No. Yeah, he waited 18 days and sent it off, and got a beautiful response on letterhead. Said, no, not quite ready. We'll see him when he's 8. At the time, it was 18. And by the time I got around it, you had to be 16 years old. And of course, now you can be 14. So transition of the age.
Awesome. And that letter was from the one and only Carl Haas, right?
No, it was somebody in road racing.
Oh, okay.
Out in Denver.
Out in Denver, okay.
The Carl Haas connection we have is Carl Haas adopted my dad for a while on the under 2-liter Can-Am circuit, because they were poor Kansas kids and couldn't afford to feed themselves. And so Carl Haas says, kids, I'll take care of you. You eat with us now.
Oh, that's good. That's good stuff. Good stuff. All right. So let's get to how you get from that to being in the head of tech for the Super Tour series. Were you did you end up doing a lot of time working with your local tech team it's starting with, and then it evolved from there? Or how did that get to that?
No, I was a rule bending production racer my whole life. Leaning on a rule book, trying to do things that couldn't be found, and I really lucked into this. There was a job opening here in the tech department, and Kent kind of prompted me and said, "No, I think you could." I said, "Tech, that doesn't sound any fun. I want to, sit around, be staunch, and be that referee. I wasn't necessarily excited about it. Boy, looking back, I didn't know what I was, going to get into and how fun it was going to be. But no, I don't think it was something I did growing up. I worked in timing and scoring a little bit. I kicked around the racetrack, but never in tech. And then, through the Formula SAE rule years, developing pretty high-tech race cars, we always fought tech tooth and nail. So, I said, I don't know if that's, the realm I want to be in. Came to work at SCCA, and I thought I was just going to kind of manage rule questions. If you had a question on the GCR, you call my hotline and I help you out. So I answer helmet questions or roll cage questions all day, every day here in the office in Topeka. And then the department said, you know what, we need to fill a role on the road. Do you mind going out to Super Tours and acting in this role? I said, I'll try, hold your hand up, go do it. And for 4 years now, it's been a great time.
Cool. And, you've got to go to some of the best racetracks that our country has to offer.
Yeah. I feel blessed in my position in the office. I have my pulse on all the rule changes going on in the rule book, but I also get to go out in the field and then see them at the priority tracks that we go to, all the bucket list tracks that the Super Tour goes to. You couldn't have two better ends of it.
So a lot of times when I have someone from National on, I put a little note on the Facebook page. What would you like me to ask them? And I didn't in this situation because I knew I was going to get 7,000 questions. So, and we'll do another one down the road where maybe we can just take questions from the folks. That could be a lot of fun. But I think there's some areas that I want to step into and tap into today.
Okay.
The first area is not quite about with what you do, but I just want to delve just for a tiny bit into the way you work with the local tech and scrutineers and what people should think about if maybe they might want to hang out with tech and learn some stuff. I bet you there's some learning opportunities there.
Right. Yeah, all the tech shed, I'm gonna call them tech sheds, I suppose, that I walk into across the country, because it can be an easy up tent, or it can be a nice building, and there can be 20 people there, or there can be 2, and they can range in age from 14 years old to 80. So you don't know who you're adopting on that weekend when I go, but it's really their region, their show, and the Super Tour comes around and tries to put a little polish on it. So we let them proceed as they normally do and help in whatever way we can. But as far as someone new coming in, to whether it's a high-end event, Super Tour, runoffs, or just your local regional, that tech crew will adopt you. But realize it's their tech shed, when you're coming in, and they might have been doing something in certain ways for 40, 50 years, you know what I mean? Or you could have a guy who's new in the position. So it certainly varies across the country.
Definitely.
Bottom line, just like any part of our road racing family, they're going to adopt you. They might be a little gruff, but they're going to adopt you.
Absolutely. So what's the difference from the tech and rules standpoint? I mean, the rules don't change, but they're looked at maybe more closely at a Super Tour event rather than a regional event, right?
Yeah, I would say so. We have a corral of impound all. It's a little more structured. We have, guys that are qualifying for the runoffs as opposed to, a one-off or a regional. And they're running a full season. We want to have it consistent. And of course, as you know, the job of tech is to help protect these guys. So we want to get them right by the runoffs. We don't want to catch them at the Super Tour. We don't want to catch them in the runoffs. We want to have them compliant by the time they get to the runoffs so they don't hurt themselves.
Right.
Really our job across the country. So
it's not you're not out to get them, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Never a witch hunt, never out to get them. We all have stories of racing that become lore.
Sure.
Our job is to adopt the driver, and whether it's a fire bottle that needs recertified or a non-compliant restrictor, I want to get him back out for the next race with a compliant car so he can enjoy his weekend. Yeah.
So I got to hang out with you a little bit last weekend, or I guess maybe 2 weekends ago. I don't remember. Right. They all run together after a while.
Start to, yeah.
And at a non-Super Tour event, if I'm down in the tech shed area, there are weekends where you can go the entire weekend and maybe see a hood lifted,
right?
Unless it's an annual inspection, and you could go through 7, 8, 10, 12 races and you might not see the hood lifted on a car. When I stood out and watched you do your thing, because that was kind of fun, there were a lot of hoods lifted at the Super Tour. is that pretty common for the Super Tour events?
It really is. We do look at more things. A lot of them are visuals where you don't have to lift the hood, that, you know, you don't even see us checking because we know the rule book well enough, or we know those checks are the stuff that, you know, on that car that, you know, by the time it rolls across the scales, we've looked at 5 things on a compliance plan. You don't realize it. But then we do have to go in and do some semi-intrusive things. We never try to take a motor apart or anything in a Super Tour, but yeah, you'll pull a restrictor, you might pull an intake manifold, you might pull a battery out, you know, something like that. We did it at button a little bit. Generally, we try to get it done in that half an hour window of impound, you know, because we think it's a little over intrusive to have a guy go get too many tools and come back and hang out too long.
Right.
Other than that, you know, it escalates. If somebody has a problem, we'll address it. But then it comes the farther end of tech of, you know, protest paper and all that, which will help out.
Sure.
I rarely ever see that. So
right.
Have an equal balance between the light things going on at regionals all the way to the extreme at the runoffs. But Super Tour is the baseline for the runoffs, more or less.
And do you do things maybe if you're going to do something a little more intrusive, do it on Sunday where the car can get put back together during the week rather than doing it on Saturday between races?
If it's something that's going to change the tune or how the car performs, yeah, we'll be nice to the member and do it on a Sunday. But most of our checks can be done anytime.
Right.
Sure. There's a far end of the spectrum. I also participate in Spec Miata class compliance, or I'm a Spec Miata class compliance chief, and that's a whole other ball of wax where we have, you know, taking cylinder heads off and stuff like that. But that's part of that community and just part of what they compete in. And
they know it's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was going to be my next question. You know, we have wide variety of classes. You know, I think probably if you were to count the number of different cars in each class and add them all up, there's probably 300-400 cars in the GCR.
My boss Rick actually looked up how many spec lines there were. So you got, you know,
yeah. What's the number?
Sedan. It's in the thousands. It's impressive. Yeah.
And many would argue it's too many. We can have that discussion over a beer sometime. But it's obviously impossible to know everything about every car that you come across.
Correct, and that's to the newbie that can be the fear. You know, when you're bringing someone new in, I mean, I need to learn this whole book. I need to know anything about everything. No, you don't need to know anything about anything. You need to learn how to search it. You know, you need to learn how to use the book and go find the answer when you need to. So just have the confidence in yourself that it is in there. We'll find it. And sometimes I'll sit there with a competitor and I'll say, I've never even looked at this. Let's learn it together. You know what I mean? We do it.
Do they appreciate that honesty when you come up and have that discussion?
Yeah, because, you know, some of that old hat was, you know, I'm the know-it-all. I'll get to you with the answer, and no, you gotta go in together on it, I think.
Yeah. So obviously, there's a different way to look at a Spec Miata or a Spec Racer 4 than you would look at a Formula V. Yeah. You know, and what are the differences as they're rolling through the line? You know, do you pick out, like, for each race, do you say, okay, this is what I'm going to kind of keep an eye on for every car? So you're kind of looking at the same thing, or is it a weekend based thing? How do you decide the things you're going to just do look-sees on?
Yeah, we certainly develop an impound plan going into a weekend. And for each race, we'll probably have about 3 checks, 2 of them visual, maybe all 3 of them visual that you can do pretty quickly. And it could be something as simple as seatbelt dates or fire rolling through. It could be safety, or it could be compliance of, you know, every car today, if it has a restrictor and it comes to this 10, it's getting its restrictor looked at, you know, something like that. But yeah, some classes are harder to plan ahead because you don't necessarily, well, with modern registration, we kind of know what cars are going to be there, but we don't know what's going to land in impound. So we have to have a broad choice of checks. And a lot of times a car will come and go, oh man, I don't have a check for it, or you know, you don't need a check you have. So it's a balance of pinning that down. The spec classes are kind of neat. They pay a compliance fee. They have some of these class compliance chiefs that are experts and have end-all decision-making power, which helps. And their classes police themselves so well because they got the biggest peer pressure groups in them. You know what I mean? They're around each other all the time. Those pools actually play pretty well.
And there's varying differences even within the spec classes, because the Spec Racer Ford, everything comes from a prescribed playbook. You know, the motor comes sealed, the trannies are sealed, the shocks
part number
all come from the same spot. I mean, it's really hard to cheat in a Spec Racer Ford. Not that it's not attempted, you know, but that also probably makes it easier to police, right?
It does, yeah. And they've had some upgrades. Obviously, they're watching stuff, and they have to balance, you know, compliance with, you know, tuning this new motor, tuning this new transmission, all that stuff. So they're watching multiple things at once. But man, Mike Davies and Nick LaRue out of Denver, they got that under control, and their peer group is happy.
Yeah, definitely.
But it doesn't slow them down. I mean, I still have a ride height gauge. I still check for all kinds of stuff on them constantly.
Yeah,
different things. And I'll put it out in the open. The last thing I really found in SRF was fuel. So yeah, it's leaned down to where the cars are kind of settled, and their last problem was fuel, and their peer group hashed it out.
Right.
Protest.
Right.
Yeah.
Now turn the corner and let's look at Spec Miata. People build their own engines. They can build their own transmissions.
Yep.
So while there is a spec, there is interpretation of the spec. And you can, if you choose to roll that dice, you could cheat the holy heck with those if you wanted to, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, very much so. We found some unique ideas there.
Unique ideas.
More than others. But the cool thing about Spec Miata and the way it's written now is, anything is just a no-go. Like, if it's a performance gain or not, it doesn't matter. And that's the same across any class, but Spec Miata wants it that well policed that they can sleep at night and not worry about it. And trust me, they lose sleep over it. So
I remember early days of Spec Miata. There was a lot of maybe consternation or pushing back. Is it changed so much that they really want you now to be looking really closely and go after the drivers or the crews that are really doing things that are way beyond the scope?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's the general scheme, but it also has honed in. I think it was a little more Wild West 5-10 years ago, and through the group work of both the tech staff, the CRB, and the community, they've gotten it honed down to where they're not bickering as much.
Right.
Yeah.
So what are the things you see most that are done maybe on accident incorrectly? Let's start with that. What are the kind of the common mistakes that you see?
Yeah, the biggest one there is obviously, going to be weight. We're constantly changing this rule book or fluctuating spec lines or changing weights, so they don't know how to do the calculation. We have some classes super touring where you have to do math to get to your weight before it, you know what I mean? But that'll happen more often than not, or they just didn't upgrade the vinyl on the car, whatnot. But,
right.
And then, when a car does come underweight, you have all these, or reasons why or whatnot, or questions on the scales. And it's kind of one of those is what it is. We have to have something here. We got to roll you across something.
Right.
We have to agree with it in the end of the day. And that's probably the most talks I have are about weight, which is just par for the course.
Yeah, when I'm working with a team and thinking about driving with them, it's a simple sell. You never have to worry about weight when I'm your driver.
Sure.
So
certain cars can't get there, so certain don't worry about it, but others, they play that game, and it's just a dangerous rope, and that's when we sometimes have to adopt them and help them. And we have guys that are anal about it and come and weigh their car 10 times a day, and we have other guys that don't weigh their car all weekend and then end up light and wonder why. So.
So do you have the data? If you're 10 pounds overweight versus 1 pound underweight, what's that going to change in your performance? Is it really going to make a difference?
Yep.
It's I was always the question for me is like, I don't really think that it's worth risking it for 10 pounds.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But I mean, and then, that's one where you pretty much know you're going to come across the scales. And we'll go to the other end of compliance. Restrictors I bring up all the time, and we've got everything from flat plate restrictors and Spec Miatas to big ones in T1 cars to single inlet trumpets that go in P1 cars. And I've got a quiver of those that I've collected. One of the perks of finding something is it comes home with us and we add it and we learn from it. And so I take them out on the road with me and I show them to people. But the amount of restrictor plates we get, and they know the rule on that one, and they roll the dice whether it's going to get found and impounded. Those get often, so I check them often.
So how often does Brian come up to you as a driver and say, could you just keep a real close eye on 74 because something's not right with that car?
Yep, it certainly happens, and you instantly add it to your memory bank. It's something to check in the future, but you have to avoid what we call it, obviously, a witch hunt. If it's not on my plan of 3 checks, and I can't see it with my eyes, I'll probably have a conversation with you about what we can do going forward. But it might involve paper protested from you.
Right.
I usually have a great rapport with my race directors. If it's something I can see, say you had a 3-element wing on the back of a Spec Miata, I can see it with my eyes, race director. Can we go act on this now? You know what I mean?
Right.
But if it's somebody worried, he's making too much power, he's got to have more compression. Scott, go check it. I'm sorry, you'll need to fill out the paper and do a bond to find out. We can't check everything. We joke around here. We'd love to just put the whole GCR out as our impound plan, but that allows you to find anything, anytime on a whim. And we just want to have it consistent through those stockade gates of here's the 3 items we're checking, unless we see something with our eye that flashes.
So is compression could be one of those 3 items that you could check on a particular weekend?
Yep, certainly can. Yep.
I don't want to ask what are the things you won't check, because then people will start screwing with that part of the rule book.
Yeah, well, the only thing that limits that, and we'll be honest, I mean, we're a club. Dollars limits that. You know, we'd love to check everything, but you can only bring so many tools to race and check so many things. And the cost of living going up. We were talking about bond recently. You know, if someone does protest something, what's the hourly rate to get that? You know, to get that check somewhere out in the field. You know, if I'm not around or the local region needs to do it, and it's gone up substantially. So everything from tools to comparison parts, it's hard on the money end to check everything.
What do you see as the biggest challenge for what you do on a race-to-race weekend? Because I'm sure that you kind of get in the crosshairs as well, because you are kind of the bad guy sometimes, right?
You get to be the bad guy sometimes, I suppose. It happens so few and far between that it doesn't even register with me, really, because I haven't, you know, I've had a couple experiences, never a bad experience, and there's so many good smiles of the help of get the guy, oh, I didn't think of that, thank you for the help, now I'm back on track doing fine, that it outweighs it in spades. Yeah, if people, and that's what I was before I came into the field of, man, I'm gonna be in the tech shed and you're just gonna be kind of berated or have that buffer between you and the competitor, and it's totally opposite. I get to see them more than anybody because they're my impound area. I see them more than grid. I see them more than timing and scoring, you know, anything other than maybe registration, and they're in a good mood after a race in tech. So no, I think it's a cool experience.
I think back in the day, the tech shed gave lots of people ulcers, you know, because two things, there were 2 ways that the tech shed worked. And one way was you could go to a race, they do nothing. They weigh you and that was it. Mm-hmm. And then every once in a great while, you would find a tech inspector who had, you know, whatever the reason. Maybe they woke up the wrong side of the bed. Maybe they did something like you, where every weekend they chose to do something, you know, to look at something, but you don't know that. And you feel like you've been singled out by the tech inspector from hell. And I don't feel that happens quite so much anymore, does it?
It doesn't. You know, there's always that personality type in any lifestyle that they're out there, you know, with that mindset. And, you know, I've been around tech inspectors. They're going to find something, like, you know, say it's an annual. Sure. They're not satisfied unless they find something for you to go do. You know what I mean? But it is, I think, waning. I still have a few here and there, but they're so good at what they do. You know, it's kind of, they have the strength and the knowledge. It's just that interaction. And some people are in the tech shed because that's their mentality. They didn't want to be in registration. I think in the modern age of helping fellow man, we're doing pretty good in the tech shed, and we probably do have a little bad limit from the past, but we're overcoming it.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about a couple of things. I want to talk about things like seatbelt dates. That's always, people yell at that about that. Why do I need new seatbelts? Let's talk about that. I want to talk a little bit more about some of the things that you've caught drivers doing that helped them when they got to the runoffs. You know, eliminate that kind of problem. So we're going to do all that when we come back. You're listening to Inside the SCCA on the Racing Wire Podcast Network.
I'm Abby Shear, and this is Inside the SCCA.
When I need numbers for my autocross, time trial, or road race car, I go to autocrossdigits.com. Christian and his crew offer top quality magnetic and vinyl numbers. Their website is easy to navigate, the prices are great, and most orders ship in 4 business days. If you need numbers for your car, check out autocrossdigits.com. Tell them the podcast guy sent you. All right, we're back on Inside the SCCA. I'm Brian Belansky. He is Scott Schmidt, the Hoosier Super Tour Series Tech Chief. Scott, thanks for being with us today.
No problem.
So we're having this awesome conversation. I just love this side of our sport. When I look at the social media and the Facebook page and all this kind of stuff, the one thing I see over and over again is people complaining about seatbelt days. You know, your seatbelts look fine. They've never been in a wreck. You know, maybe they've been in the car for however the length of the expiration period of the belts is, but the car's only raced 5 times. And they're like, why do I need new belts? Why do we need new belts?
You know, it's a great question. We have 2 different types of belts we allow in SCCA. An SFI label comes out of California belt, which currently with SCCA is good for 2 years. They had some, I called them new old stock on the shelf, 5-year SFI belts, but I think they've all gone by the wayside this year. And then we have FIA belts, which will last for 5 years. So yeah, you're right. Two different time spans, same equipment, perhaps, don't know. But, you know, it comes down to the SFI here in America. You know, we have round racing of sprint cars in Iowa that do sit out in the UV and get dirt on them all day. And those belts do deteriorate and degrade when you power wash your car 3 times a week, you know what I mean? And they have to have a label that goes across the gamut. That's how I explain it to people more than anything. And it's tough and it's rough. I do give them the option, you know, here's an FIA belt that costs 1.5 times as much money, but it lasts 2.5 times as long. You know, maybe you go that route.
Right.
But SFI belts are plenty available, but it's just like the helmets. It's the beautiful racket we live with to get to play and do what we do. You know what I mean? And if that's what it takes to write off on the insurance, I'll certainly do it for now. But it's tough, and we're bound by it, and I haven't seen a solution to it. So yeah, every 5 years for about $300 is I think what you do.
Yeah. What's the most common complaint that you get from, you know, folks who deal with tech, as far as, you know, I got picked on or whatever the case may be? What are the common complaints you hear from people?
Well,
and what do you do to kind of ease their worries and their concerns?
Yeah. You know, one of the ones I get is, you know, we do get, you know, you watch our tech flow sometimes. It looks like we're not checking very much stuff because we are doing those visuals. You know, how come tech didn't check this in my group? And, you know, people are hyper focused in their class, and you know, we do have 28 of them out there and 3 checks a piece. You know, we can't do everything for your love on that make model in your class, I'm afraid. We do get a lot of that. And then once you kind of explain to them how big a book it really is and everything you're doing there, and explain to them that sometimes it's peer pressure in your group of, say you race, you know, American Stand, you know, go talk with your competitors, you know, if you can't build a rapport, certainly work through us, but we do a little bit of both. And sometimes we are the middleman of groups. And because, yeah, I'll often have, you know, 2 competitors in one ear at one time, you know, and I'm balancing them both all the time because they're asking those deep, hard questions.
Do you check the same 3 things for every class in a weekend, or does you pick 3 different things for every class? 3
different things for every class.
Or for every race group, maybe.
Yep. So you'll have a race group of 4 or 5 classes and 3 checks each. So it compounds.
Right.
And you saw it, and you can become a busy beaver during the group to get to all those classes. And I'm sure, you know, some people in those classes would like to have someone spend all 30 minutes on their class. And
sure.
Yeah, we simply can't.
Yeah. So when the CHP does a DUI check, a lot of times they announce where the check is going to be.
Yep.
Do you guys tell the competitors what the 3 checks are?
We don't, but it's certainly not hidden knowledge. We wouldn't tell them ahead of a group, obviously, before they went out. But as soon as they come to impound, I'll tell that information to anybody.
Got it. Okay.
You know, once it's time to perform that check, yeah, anybody on the premises pretty much can find out. But yeah, of course, leading up to even to the grid, I'm pretty tight-lipped until those cars roll on the grid, and even then, sometimes around guys with radios. You know, you have to kind of watch all aspects when the car's out there, because you know you'll have everything from a car placed off the podium on purpose if they know a certain check's coming.
Right.
So we have to avoid that.
Oh, okay. So they would finish 4th just because they know they don't want you checking that thing.
Yep.
That's brilliant.
And it's common. Yep.
You know, I always, here's the one that always got me. When a guy is really, really cheating badly, you know, it is really easy to be just fast enough to win and not make it look like you're cheating badly.
Yep.
And I don't understand why people would not even just do, you know, if they're going to be dumb enough to try to cheat. But I mean, it just strikes me as if you're really going that fast, you know, just slow down a little bit.
Sure. Yeah.
Finish second once in a while.
I think you got 2 ends of that spectrum. I think it catches our eyes. Say you have a guy out front leading, and we can tell he's able to hold that buffer pretty easily. Obviously, he's got something in hand. And then the other part is, most of the time my podium is beautifully clean. It's that bar marker in 10th place that never comes to my impound area that you'd really like to check. And it's the mid-pack stuff that's pretty interesting. We finally get to see more of that and spec me out of it. Some of the other groups we don't. So I bet there's some hilarity out there in some of those cars.
So can you come up with maybe 1 story or maybe 2 stories of the crazy things you've come across that maybe people thought they were going to get away with, that were so obvious that they should have never even tried?
Yeah, one of them I adopted was before my time, and I tell you about these restrictor plates that we carry with us, and then I will show them in an impound area to guys, of the bigger hole that somebody has made or whatnot. But the rule inspecting on at one time was all your air must pass through a 38 millimeter hole in a restrictor, right? So they had a 38 millimeter hole in the middle, and they had another hole all the way around the outside of that. And I'm torturing the rule book. My dad would raise me and say, hey, I have the hole you asked for. I just also happen to have another hole bigger than that around, the outside of the orifice. So, we have stuff like that we find, and we laugh and we chuckle, and it goes in our back pocket, and they get written up for it.
And then is the new rule a single 38 millimeter hole? Is that now written in the rule book? I'd have to look.
And I love it when guys get rule book edited because of things like that,
Right.
Know the intent. So we go ahead and it's written up as it is, but then later it's rule book.
I always thought there'd be a badge of honor in having, like the Brian Belansky rule in the rule book. Yep. I'm sure there are Carol Shelby rules and Smokey Unick rules. And I can go down and down and down the line of all these, legendary races.
Some Kent Prather rules, I bet.
I'm sure there are,
Yep.
Any other great stories that you can come up with that from over the years?
Nothing wild other than that, the hilarity of the guys that just they hold their hands up of, I didn't know. That's my favorite, is the guys, I didn't know that was the rule, you know what I mean? And I just applaud them for what they have. But that is in our sport, and we have all it takes. And then we have guys that are so embarrassed that they didn't realize they were in the gray area. They want to be out of that conversation so quick. And you got other guys, not my first time in jail, I'll be back. So we have both.
So I would guess now, after 4 years, you have a pretty well honed spidey sense. Mm-hmm. How easy is it to tell between the guy who or gal who really didn't think they were cheating and found, as right. opposed to the guy or gal who is just out there killing it and cheating all the way up?
Yeah, it's nigh on impossible to tell until you actually look at the car and look at the parts, because your mind will fool you for sure. You know what I mean? It'll take in the wrong direction. And we always have that. One of my PR guys that comes to the Super Tour, Reese White, has this check that says, nope, just walk up to that spec Miata guy and tell him, we're going to take your cylinder head off. And he goes, okay. And he starts into work, well, he's probably fine. It's the guy that goes, well, I need to go get my truck and I need to go get my tools. I'm not quite ready to take it apart. Okay, yes, please proceed. And I want to see yours. But the guy who's ready to dive in there and show you, he's probably fine. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And we see a lot of that.
What's it like to go all around the country? I mean, lots of people get to do that because there's pro series and everything, but that's a pretty cool job with the club, to be a club racer and then now have this opportunity to go see these tracks, hang out with the people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much so. I'm a historian, history major in college, now on the racing side of it, grew up in this club since the early 80s, been to a few of these bucket list tracks. I'm a vintage racer myself, so some of the old iron, the cars that that we get to see, but to be in some of the places, Seneca Lodge, Seepkins, Road America, in this role, even hits a little deeper that, you're part of this history of that, SCCA tech inspector hitting the country or hitting the road. And then it's so fast paced that it flies by, you don't realize it happened, because we are in chug mode, and we gear up for the runoffs, and it's pro level excitement with amateur level fun, I guess. It's just, it's hard to know how simple SCCA was at some of these tracks, people in campers, and now we have toter homes and, $300,000 rigs or $1 million rigs. And we didn't have that in a day. And to see where it's come from then and now is fun.
I'm sure you see the gambit of car prep.
Yes.
There's going to be the cars that are old and maybe on their last legs. You're going to see the cars that are brand new, prepped by a prep shop. Uh-huh. How often do you see a car that's prepped by a racer, and you might look at it from the outside and not think a whole lot of it, but you get under the hood and you realize that this is a gorgeous race car,
or well thought out, well engineered.
Right.
Loved on, back to the prod world, we get a lot of that in prod racing, but we always joke that it's the dirty car you watch out for, because it's the labor of love that guy has figured out. And brand new build isn't going to be fast until you bake it a while, for sure, and you see that all the time. That's probably one of my favorite aspects, because in tech you do get to look under the hood, you do get to go see, you get to analyze that guy's program and see the love and care they take in it. It's neat.
Yeah. Do you find that, because you get to go to all of the regions, divisions around the country, Do you find that there are particular areas of the country that are, pushing the rule book maybe in one area in a class, and then you go to another area of the country and they may be pushing a different area of things?
Yes and no. There's bigger pockets of a certain class, call it spec me out or this or that across the country, or form the Continentals. It might be here, but might not be there. But in the modern age of race car engineering, they've spread the knowledge to where they either travel with it or they communicate online. But everybody has the same prep level, and as soon as something is taken advantage of, even in a compliant way, the whole world knows instantly. What I mean? Something will happen at a super tour and the word's out on Monday and they're all adjusted by the next week. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you are able to see from year to year changing within the club, as far as from, car prep or, the ideas of how the super tour works? What have you seen over the last 4 years? Because I think you started when the Super Tour started, right? You were the Super Tour's first tech chief, or did you come in after a year or two?
No, Frank Derringer was here doing this, on the Hoosier Super Tour before me. They had a BFG Super Tour that somebody traveled to before that. But as far as kind of honing it and getting there, yeah, I'd say it's been done these past 4 or 5 years. Car count is steadily growing. Our groups are big. It has become something people like to do. I've got more and more people trying to hit 6, 7, 8 super tours. Last year I had somebody do all 10. It's inspiring to watch happen. A little transition, I suppose, from that regional level over to the majors level. And if you're going to do a majors, why wouldn't you wait till your super tour came around? And that's why some of those counts are big and neat to see. And that creates good problems for us. Everything from registration to express tech to, parking cars and impound. It's just more of everything. And I think the club member and the officials have dealt with it well to deal with the constriction.
If you saw a car at a super tour and found something that needed to be rectified, is that driver pretty much on notice that when they show up at the runoffs, you're going to check that part again?
Yeah, but in a wink way of here it is. I'm sorry you got caught. I'm not mad at you. Bring it back. Bring it back again. We'll probably hang out again. You know what I mean? And then you watch it for a while, and you have repeat offenders that'll do it 10 times in a row, and guys that learn the first time. And you just manage it case by case.
Right.
But yeah, and then kind of say, I just found you once. I mean, I'm gonna ride you the rest of the season. You know what I mean? So. It varies, and then some I do need to check him next time.
Right. What's your advice for someone who might just decide to build a car? I mean, we have the ability to do that in this club. I always tell people that, if you're really into wrenching, that's a lot of fun. Yep. But usually building a car from the ground up is more expensive than going out and buying even a semi-sorted car. Yep. What's your advice? Because it sounds like you've done a lot of building. You worked for the Praetors before you came to the SCCA. What's your, if you were to do your top 5 list of things people need to concentrate on, if they're building a car from the start, what would they be? Right. I'm going to guess the first one's going to be safety.
Yeah, safety is huge. So that's number one, to get the car, get the logbook on the thing, get a logbook for it. But I guess I take a step back further than that. I get a lot of guys that drive it. Not only do I want to build a race car or buy a race car, I don't know what I want. I've never been racing. How do I get there? So it's kind of the license and the car at the same time. And I always recommend, go to an event. No paddock is off limits. Go knock on the doors of that car or class you're interested in and see if you can get adopted by that group at a race before you ever commit. 2, if you're going to go to a driver school, or if you like a make or model and you haven't been around it, go rent one first. Go drive it, make sure you fit, make sure you actually like it before you commit the money to it. Okay, and then once you decide, no, I do like Miatas, I drove one to high school, I do want to build one. Okay, yeah, then it's safety things. And if you can, go find your local tech inspector and have them kind of hold your hand and walk you through. But, section 9.3 of the GCR is all the safety items. If you can knock all those out and read it, you can certainly build your own car. Many people have done it. You know what I mean? Yeah. We like adopting those folks and getting them through, and daily phone calls with many today doing it. But yeah, that's your crux, is to get the thing safe. And then if you want to hone your skills, back to those same people of your peer group that race those cars well, go back and learn from them. But yeah, all I really care about in the end, to the logbook of cars is safety. I could care less about your compliance or what engine you have in it until it's safe.
Right.
And then we'll find a place for you to race.
And part of being safe is being quick enough to at least be not dangerous.
Yes. Yep.
So there's that consideration also. What else do we have? What else do you see? What's the fun stuff that you get to do as you get to these each race weekends? I mean, you do a lot more than just tech at these weekends. You're kind of one of the guys who sets up the weekend because you carry and drive the trailer with all the stuff in it.
I always had aspirations in my 20s that I get, on a pro team and travel around to cool pro races and race on race cars before I had kids. And now I look back and go, man, that would have been miserable, because what I do now is I think better. I get to see all the specialties, all the people. I'm not stuck in one spot. I can roam around. But yeah, I am kind of the roadie or the setup guy for our rock and roll band. But we carry many specialties on that van and trailer. We've got timing and scoring, has a lot of equipment for a super tour, does special timing, a whole radio team, which is true rock band. Then I've got a gigantic victory circle podium setup that we do at all the events, and then all the tech tools. So I call it 4 specialties, and it's a lot of equipment that starts getting set up on a Wednesday or Thursday night and not picked up until dark on Sunday. But it is fun being the first one, turning the lights on and turning the lights off at the end of the weekend. It's neat.
As we get ready to get out, talk to me or talk to the folks out there who might be on the fence of going out and playing with the tech team. Just tell them to go do it.
Yeah, tell them to go do it for sure. Don't have aspirations of you need to be pinpoint perfect of knowing your stuff. And that's was my nerve-wracking part coming in here of, boy, I'm gonna get all these phone calls and they're gonna need to know something out of the rule book. And if I don't know it, what's gonna happen? Who cares?
Right.
Go look it up in your textbook. And that's really what it is. And then realize that there's tons of people around you at that event that have done it before. So you get to do a lot of watching over the shoulder for a while, which is kind of the hurdle, because guys push cars in the scales. They don't get to get as in-depth into it at first, but it's a slow growing deal. You know what I mean? You have to build that rapport with the drivers. And yeah, for the first year on the Super Tour, since I was a replacement, I got blank stares forever until they knew you. You know what I mean? And that's basically what you're doing is in tech, slowly but surely over that weekend, you're meeting all the racers so that the next weekend they can come find you.
Right.
That's what you do in your early days in tech.
Well, and also over the years, you've probably met a lot of these drivers and teams multiple times. Mm-hmm. And I would think that at some point in time, they almost come to you as a confidant. Like, if I were to do this, would this get me in trouble?
Constantly. Yep. And I want them to do that for sure. And it's nice when they do, because it's, I don't know. I think they realize we're racers too. And we can help you think through that problem. And they've, unless you ask, you're not going to get something interpreted, and oftentimes it gets turned at first I'll go, no, I don't think you can do that. Oh wait, yeah, go ahead, take advantage of that loophole, drive a truck through it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that happens a lot. I love it when you do it. Cool.
Well, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you spending some time here with us. A couple of things I wanted to announce before we get out. Because you are the guy who carries the trailer around, you have a very, very special piece of equipment on that trailer.
Sure do. Yep.
It's the Inside the SCCA podcast banner. Maybe the most important. No, I'm just kidding. Yep. And you have agreed to put it up on race weekends. Mm-hmm. And I just want to let our listeners know that if they take a selfie with the banner and post it on social media, every week we're going to go through all those selfies. Hopefully there'll be dozens or hundreds of them at some point, and we're going to give something away.
Cool.
So and we're also going to start having some Inside the SCCA podcast decals that you can put on your car. So it'll be the same deal. If I get a selfie with someone with a decal or a banner every week, someone's going to get something. So the next Super Tour is when?
We go to Road Atlanta next week.
Okay.
I don't know what the dates are exactly, but yeah, not this weekend, the next weekend. We'll be at Road Atlanta for a pretty big one. We've got 300 cars or more.
Wow.
And we'll have a historic tech shed. As I say, my dad did tech at the runoffs back in, 72, 73, 74. I lived in Atlanta at the time. So I get to stand in the tech shed he did 50 years ago. It's pretty neat.
There you go. So at Road Atlanta. Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. So
in the Road area, and we'll take a picture.
Yeah, Road Atlanta. Look for the banner, take a picture, and post it on any of the socials: Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, with the hashtag Inside the SCCA. And I will go through and my social media guru, that's the teenage daughter, she will find all those little opportunities, and I will pick someone and they will get something cool. The second thing is, I just want to remind everybody that we have all of the Super Tour race broadcasts are now going to be on the Racing Wire Podcast Network as well. Usually takes about a week or two after the races for them to get them to me and for me to get them posted. But Sebring is up. already. Coda is up already. As soon as I get the broadcasts from Button Willow, those are going to go up, and we'll be keeping doing those. And it's a nice thing to do. After you listen to the podcast on your way to race weekends, you can then go find the races and listen to them as well. So, Scott, thank you.
Hey, Brian, thank you. Thanks for doing this. And I think people in our sport are going to dig listening to these and the different specialties that you're honing in on.
Absolutely. And the next time we talk, I will put it out there, and let's just do a question and answer. I'll take questions, and we'll just do a half hour of, John, who drives H Production, says what has this question, and we'll just rattle through a bunch of questions rapid fire.
I can do what would you do if? That's easy. No problem. And would dig it. And I like your idea of leaning towards, how do we recruit more into the specialty? And I think that's what some of this stuff is leading to, is I need more people to hold their hand up to step into it, because we are shrinking right now. So
we're shrinking, and a lot of us are getting more gray hair. So, it's a combination of that and just, lots of people have lots of things they want to spend their time doing. So if we need to grow some new people, of any age, you could be at any age, but it'd be nice to grow some younger people too, because they could stick around for a long time. And
my tech sheds are actually both ends of the spectrum. I got up to college, and I got retired on, and nowhere in between. It's been two cool groups to manage, and it's neat, but at the same time, we need to recruit. So,
all right. So we'll keep in touch. Also, one last little tease. We're going to continue with our 101 podcast. So we'll do a Tech 101 and a Corner Working 101. This was not Tech 101, folks. This was more of a deeper dive into Super Tour and what Scott looks for. But we are going to do a Tech 101 somewhere down the road, hopefully soon. And so we can get people interested in out there. So Scott, have a great day. We will be back with you soon. If you like what you're hearing, like the podcast, subscribe to it so you can find out what we're going to do next. That will be every Friday we do those episodes. Also, you can leave a comment, especially if it's a good one. You can follow us on social media. We are on Instagram. We are on Facebook. We are on Twitter. And that's where you're going to find out who our next guest is. And usually we get you the opportunity to ask a question. I didn't do that this week, but you can find us in all of those places. This is Inside the SCCA. I'm Brian Belansky. Have a fantastic weekend. Stay safe and go play with cars.
Hi, I'm Dorsey Schrader, and this is Inside the SCCA.
Inside the SCCA is a presentation of the Racing Wire Podcast Network and Rule 15 Productions. This podcast is not affiliated with, endorsed, or sponsored by the Sports Car Club of America. The views expressed within are those of the host and our guests, and not that of the SCCA.